Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast, the Fatherhood series. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from fathers sharing their perspectives and experiences on all aspects of the fatherhood journey. This evening, I have the privilege of speaking with Seth Poole. Seth is a husband and father of two, a lifelong youth development professional, activist, and community organizer. He is a native of New Haven, Connecticut, who has dedicated his professional life to improving the conditions of the young people in our great city. Seth holds a BA in International Studies from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. He has served in various roles in youth development at notable organizations such as LEAP, the Dixwell Community House, New Haven Public Schools, Achievement First, the Boys and Girls Club of New Haven, and Planned Parenthood of Southern New England. He currently serves as the Director of System and Care with Clifford Beers, where he is working on reforms for Medicaid recipients living in New Haven. In service to the greater New Haven community, Seth has served as the chair of the Whaley Edgewood Beaver Hill Management Team and was the Ward 24 Democratic Committee co-chair for many years, and was the mayoral candidate in 2019. Seth also served on the board of directors for Citywide Youth Coalition for nearly a decade and spent the majority of that time as the board president. Seth currently serves as the chair of Livable Cities Initiative Board of Commissioners. He has also been an active member of the Mayor's Task Force on AIDS for nearly 8 years. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so pleased to be able to speak with Seth Poole this evening in reference to our Fatherhood series here at Labors of Love. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. Seth, how are you?
I'm doing well. No, thank you for the invite. Because like you said, when you reached out, it's not very often that fathers are asked to share their perspective on, just the birthing experience. So I'm very happy to be with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're just going to jump right into it. I know you have such an interesting story. I'm glad we got to talk for a moment. And especially in reference to this first question, just coming into this experience of the labor, delivery, pregnancy process, prenatal, moving forward. What was your experience and understanding prior to your first experience?
So, my wife and I were married for a number of years and decided to make the decision to start trying and to get pregnant, that is, and to no avail during the early years. So it was tough. So we, went through all of the, is it me, is it you? Everybody's got to go to the doctor, make sure and check, because we were not in our 20s or younger parents for that matter. As it came to, she had to get a myomectomy in order to even begin the process of becoming pregnant. So that completely changed the trajectory of our pregnancy and our parenting journey, which added a number of concerns and fears. If I'm perfectly transparent with you, I was deathly afraid to lose my wife.
So for those who don't know, what is a myomectomy?
So, people are very familiar. Well, definitely, female-bodied individuals are familiar with fibroids and how fibroids can and will produce. These are non-cancerous tumors, for lack of a better explanation, that form in the uterus and can prevent pregnancy from occurring, can lead to some other difficult and uncomfortable aspects, such as heavy bleeding during the menstrual cycle, increased pain and discomfort during during the period, and it was just a lot of support that my wife needed from not only her doctors but also from me, which was you step up to the plate. You know, when you sign up for the long haul.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, just so that people know, I know you speak eloquently and you're so knowledgeable about the information. I know we spoke about just having a background and a clear understanding of reproductive health. So this wasn't too out of left field or like something. It was something that you were somewhat familiar.
Lord of mercy, it was I was way too familiar.
Okay.
As a certified sexuality educator, I spent the previous I want to say 6.5 years prior to the position that I've been in now since April of 2020 as a sexuality educator with Planned Parenthood of Southern New England. And we all know that all too often when you talk about sexuality education, the person who's in front of you doesn't look like us. And one of the many things that I felt that I was unprepared for, particularly growing up during the crack era and the era of HIV, was exploring sexuality, particularly at a collegiate level, and meeting people from all over, not only the country but the world, and all of the potential hazards that could present. So you have to like walk in mindfully. So it's like, what are the blanks that our children? I mean, we're sending our children out as sheep amongst the wolves, is like how I like to explain it. It's like, oh, go to college, get out of high school, go to college, and then they send you to college, don't tell you how much anything costs, and nobody taught you how to use a condom. So you're kind of set up to fail. And without the proper education, I've watched way too many, colleagues, friends, mentees fall victim to their own ignorance. And that's a failure of a society, not necessarily of a failure of an individual.
So to have all of that on board, it sounds like that you were somewhat ahead of the game in reference to, mindfully walking into this process of conception and pregnancy and that process. So going into it, did you, collectively come up with what the plan or how you visualized how you wanted your birth to occur, where you wanted the birth to occur, the team that you wanted around you for the birth?
Oh, let's be clear. That's not my call.
Oh, no, but as far as like conversations about decision, I'm very clear about that.
Definitely not my call. So, I definitely was, particularly given all that we were facing with the myomectomy, which is essentially a C-section, which occurs to remove the tumor. So in that event, any subsequent pregnancy would be, carried to term or to almost a term, and a C-section would be done as well for that reason, because of scar tissue on the uterus and things of that nature, and how carrying a child to full term can potentially rupture that scar tissue and prove catastrophic to the mom. So I've always been a person who was very mindful of healthcare, given my household. My brother was, pretty sick guy when I was growing up. And, I've seen a lot of, mental health stuff just in my community, but like the physical health aspects, I mean, it was asthma, but it was, our environment wasn't it wasn't necessarily a positive environment for a person who has, breathing difficulties. So we spent a lot of time in the hospital with him and young people his age, and saw way too much trauma at a very young age, a whole lots of loss of young life, seemingly preventable. So I've always been very mindful of and very serious about healthcare, particularly being there at the appointments with my wife. I have not missed an appointment with my children. I do not allow doctors to touch my babies. Having been, to be honest with you, having had, medical malpractice practiced on myself.
Wow.
It's the kind of thing where it's like all hands on deck, and I'm not going to allow for my children to be, hurt the way I was, nor, not know what's going on, particularly around my wife's care as well.
So you were definitely an advocate in the space with her.
I was a listener.
Okay.
It was just, I mean, I didn't know what a myomectomy was before I walked in there. I didn't know, and she has, had a trusted OBGYN who she'd been with since she was a young person. And so it's like I walked in there and almost was, treated as a I'm not gonna say I treated as a tumor, but it was like, look, you are full well going to listen to everything that I say, do what I say. So it's like it wasn't just her visit, it was mine too.
Education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's some threats.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. It's like, this is what you're going to do, and I'm like, oh, okay,
So definitely having to make choices and decisions around, what was in the best interest under the circumstances. Did you find that, did you utilize any support in this as a family? Did you get a doula? Did you create a village that, would be there to support you all during the pregnancy and once the baby was born, as far as like postpartum support?
We did not. We had an unfortunate tragedy in the family, which, because we were all looking forward to, all 4 of my grandparents are still alive when my first child was born. And, all 4 of our children's grandparents were going to be around as well. But unfortunately, we lost my wife's mother in the 3rd trimester before our first child was born, which presented another level of, trauma and the need for, support and space and grace and understanding. Not to mention, just mourning. It's, when you bring children into the world, it's supposed to be a joyous moment. And, this was particularly bittersweet because we were missing, the matriarch of the matriarch. So it was tough. So, we were blessed in that to have, supportive family around us. In addition to that, where the aunt stepped up, the uncle stepped up, everybody stepped up, her dad stepped up, like everybody. And in order to be, supportive and truly welcome, this new addition into our lives. And she's 5 years old now and on our way to high school next week. No,
I know that's right. She is so precious, and that's beautiful that you did have, the community to step up. And I can't imagine from an emotional, mental health standpoint what that experience was like. But I'm sure, you came out on the other side with some great wisdom, and I definitely appreciate that. So as far as moving into just the highlights of the births. So you got to a point where, once you were actually in like the labor delivery process and them coming into the world, what was that from a father's perspective? How was that experience for you? I know you mentioned that there was some concern just because of some of the pre-existing things in place. What was that experience like?
Well, I had a pleasant surprise in the delivery room. As a youth development professional myself, I've worked with a lot of young people, and I walked in and they were like, okay, we're the team. We're going to be delivering your baby. We're going to take care of it. And I looked up and it was one of my former students' moms.
That's good.
So it's like, I know I could trust my wife's doctor because, she doesn't trust me. So that means she's working for my wife. And I see a trusted nurse in the room who's, is very grateful for the work that I've done with their child. And, very excited. It's like, look at your old behind becoming a parent for the first time. Let's go. So it was all right, and it was good because I could talk to her, I could talk to my wife during the process. I'm like, are you feeling any pain? And she was just smooth. Everything was fine. It was, on the other side of that sheet, there was something going on. I wasn't going to look. But as long as she said she was doing well, everything was fine. And then, you know, when they said, "Oh, it's a baby girl," and you heard the cry right after, as soon as you hear that cry, you know, yeah, that's when you exhale. You know, it's like, you know, they exhale, you exhale. And you realize that, you know, right now is like, this is the moment. You know, it's like, all right, I want to meet her. You know, and that was, you know, that was good as well. You know, because it was strange because, you know, in a C-section, it's like, okay, baby's out, so are you, get out. You know?
Oh wow, okay.
So you're removed, the baby goes that way, you go this way, they, you know, clean the baby up, and I'm like, all right, I need to be where the baby is. And, you know, I stayed that way because it was tough. You know, it was like in the hospital, we were dealing with jaundice, and nobody wants to see their baby in that chamber with those lights on it.
Right.
And you're like, look, we'll bring her outside, you know, so she gets some real sunlight, like later for this, you know, this hot dog warmer y'all got her.
Right. You get some vitamin D, you get that real sunlight.
Yeah. So the skin to skin, the, you know, making sure that they, you know, latch, and which was not easy. So that they get the colostrum, because if they don't get it, then, you know, you never know. There's just so many aspects that, you know, those were the pieces. The post delivery were the pieces where the education truly started to begin, because it's like, oh yeah, you always talk about prevention of pregnancy, prevention of sexually transmitted infections, but then when you're diving into parenthood, it's after, you know, when does the blueprint show up?
Right.
And that was and it's like there's no one size fits all. You're going to have a child. Your child's not going to be like any other child that has ever been, and you're not going to do hardly any of the stuff that your parents did, because it's just not going to work. You know, you're going to find your way through this. It's not going to be easy. It's going to have its ebbs and flows, ups and downs. But at the end of the day, you just hope you have a teenager who hates you someday.
That means you're doing your job, right? I get that. So one thing you did mention, you mentioned breastfeeding. Was that something that you had an awareness of coming in, and it was just like you were supporting her choice? Or?
A little bit, you know, a little bit. You know, I mean, my family, I mean, goodness, I mean, I'm talking about the 70s. We were breastfed, and the diapers were made of cloth. And
yes, indeed.
It was just a different time. Yeah. And you know, and mamas had big mamas, and, you know, so there was kind of a doula built into the family when it came down to it, particularly when you're, you know, my grandmother had 6, her mother had 13. You know, it's like when you're having children like that, or at that frequent level of frequency, you know, those are the experts. They know what's up. So, you know, it was a lot to learn, you know, particularly in the hospital under the lamps and all the rest of that. And, you know, breastfeeding is quite possibly one of the most difficult things that I've ever seen anyone do. And, you know, my perspective was to not make my wife feel in any way pressured to be successful or unsuccessful, because I'm like, this has nothing to do with what you want. This person wants what they want, you know, and we got to meet them where they are and ensure that they can, you know, develop successfully and healthy and into, you know, hateful teenagers, like I said.
Definitely. So as far as I know, you have some experience with the differences between your first child's birth and your second child's birth. And I know we kind of spoke about how there's been changes in the hospital and just how that institution runs.
Oh yeah. So I mean, one thing was, you know, our son was born. He was born a month, almost less than a month before the onset of the pandemic. So technically, we don't have a pandemic baby, but you know, there were a lot of changes because number one, the hospital redid the entire birthing unit. So it was, you know, oh, hey, you want your own room with a tub in it and all the rest of this stuff, and you know, put in your name in the lottery. I mean, it's like, whoa, this is a lot. But ultimately, my number one prayer, wish, whatever you want to call it, was the successful delivery of my child and the successful recovery of my wife. And that was more, it was more scary than the first child, because, it's like the unthinkable, it's like to think that you're alone with two children, to think that, or you're with your wife with one child having lost the child, and knowing the statistics of, infant mortality and morbidity in this country. Black women are 4 times more likely to lose life in childbirth in the United States of America, and it is an increasing issue. One would think as technology advances, we would improve. In this instance, women with higher levels of education are just as susceptible to losing their lives in childbirth as a 14-year-old child having a child. It's crazy. And it's like, one would think, what goes into this? Well, how is this a thing in the 21st century? And it's like, and in this country, where so many things are rooted in racism, one would default to racism.
Yeah, definitely. And you can dress it up and call it implicit bias or what have you, but it boils down to the same thing, the choices that you make because of what you see in front of you. And it's, who I am as a Black woman. So yes, it is, definitely the motivation around having these conversations and just like bringing awareness to the understanding, and just finding ways to empower ourselves. So for you and being in that setting and supporting your wife through this process, was it the understanding and the education that gave you some sense of, I wouldn't even say empowerment, but allowed you to kind of maneuver in the space differently? Or what would be the thing that you would recommend to other fathers coming into this to kind of feel better prepared?
One thing I would say is be present. Don't run away from the appointments or the new terminology or the fear of the unknown. It's like, run towards it. Like, I mean, come on, you're running towards Parenthood. Got to be the craziest thing anybody ever did in life.
Signed up for.
It's like, look, if you could do that, it's like you're capable of anything.
Right.
And I mean, I revert back to my faith. I'm not a very religious person, but I am a very faithful servant. And I mean, when you look at this, I mean, the science is the science. The statistics are the statistics. Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And I need to position myself in a way where I need to be, as neutral, but also in this corner. It's like, I don't want to fray any relationship between a doctor or a nurse. I don't want to be the disturbance in the room. I don't want to cause any undue stress. But you want to ask questions. If you don't understand, you need to ask, because that's and if not, promote the usage or bring a midwife or a doula into the fold. These people are trained in childbirth, trained in the holistic aspects, trained in how to deal with the, whether the epidural fails or not. Like, there's just so many things that can happen in that space. And to educate oneself or provide, or bring in a team member, be it a big mama, I don't care who it is, you bring in somebody else and allow for them to have a voice if you don't feel like yours is strong enough. And pray your behind off, because they're gonna be a teenager. You're gonna need that prayer.
You're gonna need to make some deposits, so you got some. Yes, prayer to spare.
And start farming while you at it, because like, I got 1 year. He's just a 1 year old. He's about to be 2 in February. Look, feeding one baby is one thing. Feeding 2 babies.
Yes.
The game has changed.
Indeed, it has. And I'm just, just so much valuable information that you're sharing. I truly do appreciate your perspective. Just so that there's other things outside of, or from a professional standpoint that I know we spoke about, that is definitely of value to the community. So if we could just kind of take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that you have going on around that. And if people want to connect, how would they do that?
Oh, definitely. Thank you for that. So, I mentioned my work with Planned Parenthood, and prior to that, I had been a little bit of everywhere in our community. Every space you could think of as an after-school space. Worked there. I've been a kid there. I'm like, key carrying latchkey child, and I know what it's like when your parents aren't around and you need supportive adults around to keep you on that path. So, so much of what I've said has led me to, my career has chosen me, not the other way around. I'd much rather be in a hoodie on a stage with a mic in my hand. But
hip hop head,
it's like I could, but it's like a little late in the game now. But now I'm working with Clifford Beers on an initiative called Embrace New Haven, Connecticut Integrated Care for Kids, which is a federal award from the Center on Medicaid Services, to basically revamp Medicaid, Husky and CHIP, and how families engage with their healthcare provider, both physical healthcare and behavioral healthcare as well. And what are those, outlying aspects of, how our health either inclines, declines, or, remains stable? What are those outwardly influences? Like I mentioned, we didn't live in a very good, healthy environment for my brother to have asthma. I mean, New Haven we have the 11th worst, or the 11th highest asthma rates in the nation.
Oh my!
Because when you think about it, it's like New York City's right there. We got Two Rocks and New Haven Harbor. We're harboring nasty air.
Wow! Wow!
And if you go to the top of East Rock, get a look-see, and you'll understand, like, yes, Bridgeport is coming. Their dust comes this way. New York City's dust comes this way. As do the ships and everything else and the sound, but it bottlenecks here in New Haven because of our topography. So it's like, when you look at it from that standpoint, the Center for Medicaid Services has only chosen 7 states, 8 locations total, to give this $16 million grant to over the course of 7 years, 2 years of planning, 5 years of implementation, to basically create a technology platform and information sharing across healthcare providers to best and centering the family, and them being the driving force of what it is their family needs are, and that's all too often is what is missing. You don't feel listened to, but it gives you that one point of contact in the form of care coordination or case management, whatever you may call it, to have that sounding board, that one person that you check in with regularly, to talk about your family's positioning and what you would like for it to be, and how can we put parents in the driver's seat of their care, and families centered, and so that young people are growing up healthy and understanding that there is a door. There's no wrong door. There's always somewhere to go to gain more information, improve one's health outcomes. And, it was just a natural connection for me to come to this work, particularly during this time, given that I planned my parenthood. While at Planned Parenthood, I need to help everybody else understand that parenthood is not just, feed them, clothe them, and wait for them to get out. Send them to school, wait for them to leave the house.
Right, especially if we want the future to be as we desire. Because we're gonna be elders and ancestors, and we want it to be, divine as far as how they carry.
I want to be able to take care of me when I'm older,
Yes.
And not how I see some of our elders being taken care of today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
So if someone wants more information and they want to get in touch with you, is there email address or website that they can?
I'll give my email address. It's spoole, SPOOLE at cliffordbeers.org. Because we would be remiss if we did not include the voices of the young people and the voices of the parents in the community to help build this thing. Absolutely. It's like nothing about us without us. That's how we need to move forward. Otherwise, we are supporting the biases and explicit and implicit, and basically, putting our stamp of approval on every racist organization in the country. But at the same time, we have to gain access to those resources through those companies and those organizations. So why not, be a part of the change you wish to see in the world? I know it's cliche, but it's real.
It is. And on that note, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Seth, for taking the time out to share your experience. There is such great value in that perspective. So thank you for accepting the invitation. For those listening and watching, please, if you found value in what it is that we're discussing tonight, share, because we can't have these conversations enough. You never know who needs to hear the message that's being shared. So let's keep this dialogue going. And I greatly appreciate you all. Peace and blessings, family.
Peace.